Today we're making flatbreads. Now I've already made this recipe once before in my chicken souvlaki video, but I'm going to change the recipe just a touch there. Instead of using Greek yogurt, I'm going to be using Skyr. And for the fillings, I'm going to play around with it a little bit. I've got some leftover chicken here, I've got some ham, I've got a whole bunch of different cheeses. We're just going to mix and match and see what we come up with. Okay, to make this dough couldn't be simpler. You're just going to add your flour, your salt and your baking powder into your stand mixer bowl. Just mix it a little bit to incorporate it. And then you're going to add your yogurt, or in this case I'm using the Skyr. Straight in after it. And also we're going to add a little bit of olive oil. About a tablespoon. Once you got your dough hook attachment all set up there, you're just going to start it off on a low speed and start to mix it up. As it starts to incorporate there, you can just start slowly turning up the speed on it. Once it's come together, you just keep letting it go for a few more minutes, and then we'll take it out and let it rest. If it starts coming up the side and not going back down, just stop it, push it all back down, and then start kneading again. Okay, that's looking good. Alright, I'll just get rid of the stand mixer and then we'll come back. Once you've got your rid of the stand mixer, I'm just going to put the dough out on the work surface and just give it a couple of little kneads by hand. All you're going to do here is, you don't want to knead it too much. You just want to get it into like a nice smooth ball. I mean, doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can either wrap it in cling film, or instead of wasting all that plastic, just a little bit of oil in a bowl, in a dinner bowl or so, whatever you got. Just swoosh it all around, and then coat your dough, and just put another plate on top. And now you're going to let that rest for at least an hour. Okay, to mix the dough, you add in flour, salt and baking powder. Just give that a little mix around. Now you add in your Skyr and a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And now I like to start it off with a fork, just to get it all to get it incorporated before we start to knead it there. All right, once the fork becomes useless, just get your hand in there and start bringing it together. Now you could keep that in the bowl and keep on kneading it, but I find it easier to tip it out onto a work surface and start doing it on the table. So I'm just going to clear this off and then I'll do that. Now it does look a little dry, but just to keep bringing it together and working it, and eventually it will come together. So try not to add any more moisture at this stage. Also, you could substitute the olive oil I put in there for a little bit of melted butter, the same amount. But I find it easier just with the oil because instead of getting another pan out and melting butter and all that sort of stuff, just easier and just as good to tip some olive oil in there. All right, once your dough's come together, you're just going to start kneading it for about another 5 minutes until it becomes smooth. Okay, as you can see, just going through, dividing my dough up. Now I'm going to divide mine up into 7 pieces, which is going to turn out to be around 85 grams for each dough ball. Now, the size that you make them is completely up to you. You can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. Depending on it all depends on what you're going to actually do with the bread once you've made it. Okay, once you've got them all portioned out there, you just want to get each one and just roll it into a little bowl. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything. It's just once we roll it out with a rolling pin, it's going to be much easier if you start with a uniform bowl than if you start with something like this. It's going to be much easier to get it more of a perfect round. Okay, once you've got them all rolled into bowls there, you just want to sprinkle a little bit of flour on your board. And then I like to just start it off and just with my fingers a little bit, just a little bit, flip it around and get a little bit more flour on it, and then start rolling it out. Every time you make a little forward and back, you go from the middle out, and then from the middle you can roll it back. You just give it a quarter turn every time you roll it, and then that'll make sure your dough comes out more of a uniform round than some weird shape. Again, you don't have to do this. You don't have to get a perfect round shape. It's just, it looks better. Okay, as you can see, I've just got a pan heated up with some olive oil and butter in it. Just go ahead and drop your dough straight in. Let it cook. Alrighty. Once you've got a little bit of colour on this side, you're going to go ahead and flip it. And then you'll see it starting to puff up. You just want to push that little bit of air out. And it's at this point we're going to start to add our filling. So, for this one, just going to add some chicken. You just want to add it onto one side of the bread because we're going to fold it over in half once we're done there. So, get your chicken there. Then we'll go in with a little mozzarella. And I'm not sure what this is called in English, but it's called Toastkäse in German. So, once you've got that done, go ahead and flip it in half. And keep letting it cook. Okay, don't forget to give it a flip. So as you can see, I've already cut one open. That was just mozzarella. We had a bit of fun with the cheese pull and all that sort of stuff. But the real one I want to try is this chicken one. I think it's going to be really good because the chicken was actually a honey, lemon, and mustard coating on the outside when I barbecued it. That tastes so good. Also, these breads freeze really well. So if you just put a light browning on each side, let them cool and stick them in the freezer, they'll be good for a few months.